Hello guys, welcome to today's YouTube session. And today, as I promised, we'll continue building our budgeting app API. And I remember I stated in the last session that what we'll be focusing on in this session is how to declare our models and how to actually do migrations. So as I stated very early in the process of this YouTube session, I stated we'll be making use of GoORM. And as I explained, GoORM is basically a library that will allow us to be able to communicate with our database without writing too much raw SQL queries. So as you can see on my screen, I have the GoRM website itself. You can go to gorm.io, gorm.io, and you can see it's a fully featured ORM and it has a decent number of stars, forks, contributors. So that means it is actually a very nice package for us to actually make use of. So in order to make use of GoORM, all we need to do is copy this command and head to our code editor. So let's head to our code editor. So our code editor, we open our terminal and we plug in GoORM. Although if you followed me at the beginning of this session tutorial, you will have noticed that we already installed the GoORM. And using the GoORM at the beginning, we've already initialized our database by showing the DB host, the DB port, the DB database, the username and password. If you check our env variable, you see that we have actually initiated all of this. So if you don't know how to set up your database, I will add a link right at the top right corner for you to be able to see how to actually set up your database. So that is what we'll be going through. So we've already done database. What we'll be going through now is how to declare your models and how to actually run migrations into the database that we've actually created. In terms of the database that we've created, let me just quickly show us. We have it in our I have it opened already in the browser. So if we head to the browser, this is the name of the database budget app, and you can see right now there are no tables or anything associated to this database. So what we'll be doing now is we'll be declaring the models that are necessary to make use of this database and all. So let me quickly take us back to our requirements for our application. So as you can see, one of the first thing that we must do is allow users to be ready to register into the system. So which means the user model is the base of our application, and that is why we'll be starting with the user model in terms of the declaration of model. So I will just head back to the code editor now. Let me head back to our code editor, and to start with, I'm going to create inside our internal. So if you don't have an internal file created already, I want you to create it. And inside our internal file, I'm going to create a file called models. And inside our models, we'll have the first model we'll be creating is the user model itself. So I will just call it user.model, just for us to be able to differentiate it. So in our user model, in order to declare a model in GoORM, So we are going to head to the Gorm documentation, and we are going to look at how you can actually declare a model. So if you are going to declare a model in Gorm, as we already did right from the start of this tutorial, what we did is we installed the Gorm itself and we installed the driver that is necessary. So if you have not installed the driver, just replace the SQLite here with MySQL. And if you are using MySQLite, you can also declare it that way. So the first thing, I'm declaring models. How do we declare a model? So if you look at this, a models are defined using normal struct. So we are basically going to be using normal struct to declare our models, and you can actually assign your regular you can actually assign um your regular Golang types, and you can also associate it with the SQL null types as well. So let's just get into it. So how do we define a model? So now, well, this is how we define a model. Type user model. Then our model, in our user model, we are going to need the first name of the user, which is going to be a string. We are going to need the last name. Okay, type struct, sorry, struct. That should be a struct. The last name, which is also going to be a string. Then we also have the gender, which is also going to be a string. Then we also have the password, which is going to be, why is this? Oh, sorry. Shall wondering why. Okay, so we are going to also have a string. Then we also, so these are the basics that we need for now in terms of our user model. So the one thing I want us to take note is during the process of registering, a user does not need, and then also our users will also need email to register, email to register as well. So we can ignore gender, but let's just leave it there for now. So during the process of registration, all we are going to request from our users is their email and password, just to make their life simple. So since what we are going to be requesting for is email and password, it makes sense to actually define our model in a way that it can actually accept no. Because right now, our user model first name will be an empty string if we don't provide anything at all, as we should all be aware of. So that is why I'm going to assign this to become a pointer, and this will become a pointer as well. So, and this will also be a pointer as well. So once we actually do that, we are now certain that we can define our user model, and when we can also assign a null value to any of these guys without our goal or Golang throwing any error. So another thing that I would like us to actually define is some characteristics that you can define in your Golang model. So let us quickly go to the Golang documentation. And in the Golang documentation, let's see how to, so you can see you need to define, when you're defining a model needs an ID, and this is the base model provided to us by GoORM itself. So it has an ID, it has created that, it has updated that, and it has deleted that. So if you are going to define, so you have the choice of making use of, if you want to define your own model, you have the choice of making use of the GoORM model itself. Yeah, so let's go ORM dot model. So that way now, if we inspect this guy, you see that it has the ID, it has the created at, it has the updated at, it has the deleted at column already associated to it. So now that we've actually declared our user model, the question now is, how do we run migration on this particular model? So what I'm going to do for running of migration is I'm going to create a new folder or a new package, and I'm going to call it database. So inside this package, I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it migrate up. So the reason why I'm creating a file called migrate up is because I want to write a function that we can easily run to actually perform migrations. So let's create. So, and if you are going to run any function in Go, it has to have the main function inside it. Func main. So, as you can see, in order for us to perform migration, all we need to do is give it the DB that we've initialized and perform and pass the model inside it, and automatically the migration would be done for us. Now, so let me just copy this and let's go back to our code editor. So I'll copy this and paste this here. I'll just comment it for now. But in order for us to have access to this DB variable, one thing that we must do is we must initialize our MySQL. We must call this our MySQL method. And we must call this our MySQL method. And we can see that it is returning the DB variable after we opened our connection based on the parameter supplied. And if there is an error, let me open this up. If there is an error, it returns the error, otherwise it returns nil. So I'm going to come to migration up, and I'm going to call, and I'm going to say common, or let me do something. Why should I put it in common? Let me copy this. In fact, let us move our database.go. Let's move it into database and call it connection, right? Let's refactor. No, that's a mistake. I want to rename this to connection. Then I want to move it into this. Then I'll remove this. Now our common is empty. So inside our connection, so we have our new MySQL now. So that way we can easily load the new MySQL from here, and we'll get the DB, the error as it returns to us, right? So we now check if there is any error, right? We want to throw a panic based on the error. If there is no error, we want to go ahead and perform our migration. So now I'm going to call the user model. So make sure that this is actually imported if you are not using an IDE that is as intelligent as mine. This also returns an error. So let's just undo the error. So I'll just, if the error is nil, so I just want to panic the error as well. So if any error occurs, we are catching it as well. So because we've already declared the error variable here, we don't need to use this double, we don't need to use this anymore. So I will just remove it. So now, how do we now run this migration? All we now need to do is, as you know, how do you run a database? How do you run a Golang application? You just say go run. Then we are going to go into the file. You remember that we look at where our internal file is. So we want to go into this internal file, internal slash database slash migrate up. Bam. So it's not a main package. Okay, yes, we have to make it a main package. Oh, I see why I moved the database connection outside of this place earlier. So we cannot, hmm, hmm, I'm not sure this will work. Okay, let's try it. Let's convert it to a main. Yeah, we cannot have two main. We cannot have two main. So this migrate up, db auto migrates. So we cannot have in a folder. You cannot have two packages declared. So you have to rename this place to main, right? And this place also has to be main. So that way we can now run our migration, right? So let's say, so we are getting undefined new MySQL. So let's go to migrate up. New, that should work. I'm not sure why we are getting that error. Undefined new MySQL. Oh, okay, that's true. So in your, okay, this is what is showing error. This is what is showing error. So what can we do if we still want to keep? Okay, let's do it this way. Let's move our database back where it belongs. I'm just going to move it back for the sanity of everyone. And this will be renamed back to common, correct? And this way, yeah, so we can access it from here. Then we are good here too. So let me just call it common, common. Yeah. So that way, both the main file that we are using to run our program will also have access to the MySQL. So we need to do some cleanup. We need to remove this. Yeah. So yeah. So okay. So let's try to run our command again now. So the database connection is trying to run. Let's see if we get a success. I don't know why it's taking a while. Okay, good. So I think that is done. So let's just print a nice error here. Let's see. I mean error. Let's print a nice log. dots 29. So let's say migration completed. Just a nice message for us to know our migration is complete. Completed. Okay, so let's run that again and see. So it's a try to establish, then we can see that we are getting that very nice message now. Migration completed. So now let's check our database. If we check our database now, so now you see we have these user models nicely defined for us. So the way Gorm names your database is based on like the plural of your model name. So if that is the case, so what we can do is if we want our database to have, we still want to define our model as something like this, and we want it to actually still define the database as we wish. So let's check the database again. There's another thing that I want to show us. So you can see that automatically it has converted our columns to small letters underscores using based on our naming convention. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to our code editor. Instead of the way it was actually defined in the database, what we can do is define a method right under our model and say function. Then the user model will be like a receiver to this user model, and we'll say table name. This is a method provided to us by Gorm. So once we do this, we can say return users. So once we say we want returned as users, and this will actually be a string, this has to be in double quotes. So once we do this, let's go ahead and remove the database. Let's remove the database. Let's drop the table. So if we drop the table, yeah. So, and let's go back to our code editor and run the command again. Yeah, our migration is completed. So let's go back to our database view and let's view our database. Now you can see that we have the name nicely formatted for us. So that's basically how you can actually define a model in Gorm, and you can also define a custom database, a custom table name for it. I would like to take this further. If you look at our structure, let's inspect our structure. You can see that all the names that are defined are in long text, long text, long text, long text, long text, which does not really make sense. The highest number of names that we are going to have is probably 255 characters. If anybody name is that long, it doesn't make sense because this will actually increase the size of our database as well. I want you to take note of this. You can see that currently our space usage is 32 kilobytes. Let's see if we actually reduce these text sizes to something minimal. Let's see if this will actually help our space usage. So in the GoRM documentation itself, we are told that we can actually define some custom data types. You can define types. Yeah, so as you can see, we can actually define different type for our tables. You can see we have the type where you can say it is varchar, it is boolean, it is string, and so on. You can also specify the size. You can specify the size, maybe it's 256, data length, the length of the data. Then you can specify if the column is unique, if it is a primary key, and all, if it is auto increment, and all. So let's go back to our code editor. So if we inspect the Go ORM model, you will see that it already has some of those stuff for us, and it has already declared our ID as a primary key. So we are just going to copy this, and we are going to come to our user model, right in front, paste it, paste, 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 paste. So the idea is, of course, we cannot have more than one primary key in a table. So what we are going to do now is we want to define the type of our first name. So we want to say type, and we say var char, and it will be of 200. The same thing for, let me copy that. In fact, let me just copy it, do the same thing across board. This will also be a varchar. Our gender can even be, because gender is even small, gender can be as little as 50. Our email can be as little as 100 characters, but let us leave it as 200. Then now you can also define columns that can be null. By default, all columns defined, if we check our database definition again, you notice that all columns are defaulted as null, and they are also all set to as nullable, which should not be it. So what we are going to do now is we are going to go back to our code editor, and we are going to say that password cannot be null, like this, not null. Now, if you want to define different attributes against the Go ORM type, you separate your definitions by using the semicolon. Then, okay, I think we are fine for this. We know that our password cannot be null because this is what they are signing up with. Gender can be null, email cannot be null. Then remember, our email has to be unique as well, right? Then our last name can be null, our first name can be null. So let's go back to our database and drop the table that we've actually created again, right? Then let's come back to our postman. So let's come to our code editor and let's run our migration again. Now our migration is done. Let's go back to our database view and let's view. So now looking at our structure now, you can see that our database is no longer nullable. Our email is no longer nullable as well, and we have this nice unique attribute attached to our database. So you can see that our index has increased, although our total distance has increased as well, but that is because we created an additional index on our database. So that will be the end on this session. This is how you actually define a GoORM model. So let me just walk us through it again. So what we did is, the first thing we did is we created a user model, and it inherited, using composition, it inherited the GoORM model, and we defined the first name, the last name, the email, the gender, and password attributes. After defining this, we also use this make function to define a custom table name for our user model. Then we created a function to actually auto migrate our database that we can easily run using the command line package. So that will be the end of today's session. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you are still going to be following along as we build our budgeting API step by step. Thank you.